Happy Sunday, everybody. It's May 24th. It is Memorial Day weekend, and that means it is the beginning of summer season. But you wouldn't know that from looking outside here on the East Coast, because here in New York, we have winter weather at 51 degrees and storms. It's windy, it's cloudy, it's pouring rain, and it's been like that since yesterday. And believe it or not, we're almost in June and we're still wearing our coats. So, whatever. So for Memorial Day weekend, make the most of it, because anything that you're going to do has to be moved indoors. Barbecues, parties, whatnot. And I'm sure you make the most of it. You can turn a negative into a positive at any point in time, and you make the most of it. So don't think of it as, oh crap, my plans are ruined. Think of it as, we can move it indoors. We can just do something else instead. Why get mad about it? You cannot control the weather. And what you can control is listening to this podcast, because I'm trying to pivot away from politics, because it's getting too stressful and too out there, and it's the same BS every single day, and we know how it's going, and it's never going to end, and it just gets worse, and it's too stressful, and people want to hear a podcast that's more lighthearted. And the name of my Substack here is Thoughts of an Outspoken Guy, which basically means whatever's on my mind, I'm going to talk about, and I always have a lot on my mind. And because I'm inside today, and and I'm going out later, and I will discuss that in my podcast today, I realize I can't just sit here and watch the circus anymore. And by the circus, I mean like this. Because I decided I'm going to do a podcast that's basically humorous and basically unfolding in front of my eyes in real time, and there's something that I'm sure we all can relate to. And I apologize in advance. It's going to link to politics because it's related, and it's the only way I can explain it. So, because I'm inside, I really had nothing to do today, and I had zero plans to make a podcast today, because frankly, it was Sunday. I had nothing to talk about, and I just wanted to sit back and turn my brain off for one day before it starts getting busy. But I didn't think, and also the truth is, I didn't think I had enough BS to fill the airtime of late. But then I'm looking at my phone, and I realize I'm trapped in a bargain bin sitcom. See, I got a guy in my group chat. Let's call him Jimmy, who's essentially playing The Sims with his life. And anybody who knows The Sims knows exactly what I'm talking about. Anybody who's ever played any version of The Sims knows exactly what I'm talking about here. If I start laughing, I apologize, but you can't make this shit up, ladies and gentlemen. You can't make it up. It's literally a sitcom that's writing itself in real time. Because basically, he's trying to convince us he's a high-rolling, wedding-crashing, rabbi-knowing, girlfriend-having titan of the community. It's really a full-blown theater production, and if you didn't see it for yourself, you just wouldn't believe it. And you might be asking yourselves, why does this matter? Why do we care? Well, I'll tell you why. Because we all have some sort of a Jimmy in our life, male or female. It doesn't really matter. I'm sure there's somebody listening here that says, hey, wait a minute. Yeah, I know that person. And you're probably thinking, why not just mute the guy? Well, that's a fair assessment of that, muting the guy, except this is entertaining for me. First of all, I'm bored. I'm home, and this is entertaining just to watch this guy unfurl and trying to justify every time I call him out and saying, you're wrong. I'm like, okay, I'm wrong. But here's why I don't want to mute it. Because when you mute it, you lose the entertainment value, and basically when you're bored, you want to be entertained, right? But that's where the humor meets the reality of this whole thing, of why you don't want to mute it. Because it's basically entertaining, and the humor is muting reality. Because this isn't just about some guy in a group that's trying to look cool in a rented suit or any suit that he buys. This is a symptom of a much bigger, all kidding aside, this is a symptom of a much bigger, much more dangerous thing that's going on. And it's a little bit of everything of narcissism, ego clashing, and basically a guy trying to be popular with everyone. And he's trying to throw it all out there. And and when I saw him going out earlier, so here's where this is, because we're living in an era now, and a lot of this you have to thank Donald Trump for, because if it's only the one good thing that I'm going to give Donald Trump credit for, the only thing I'm going to give him credit for is that he actually exposed people who they really are, because he declared that it's okay to show who you really are. It's okay to show the hatred who you are and your true colors without having to feel any remorse for it. And that's what this is all, and that's what this all is. It's all about where performance has literally replaced the truth. Whether it's a guy in a chair pretending to be a high stakes gambler, or a political theater that's dominated our country for years now. Looking at you, Trump, we are being trained to ignore the obvious red flags because the show is too addictive to turn off. You know how it is? It's like one of our guilty pleasures. It's sort of like, I grew up in the 90s and the 80s, and really it's like a lot of those songs that were made back in the 90s or the 80s is music that probably wouldn't be made today. And a lot of these just came at the right time. Because the 90s was all about the Euro music, Euro pop. People like groups like Aqua, Spice Girls, Real McCoy, the Vanga Brothers. It all came at the right time. We all know that songs like Barbie Girl is a cliche. We all know that it's like that, or Marky Mark's Good Vibrations, or the Cotton Eye Joe. These are songs we all grew up with and guilty pleasures that we don't want to admit that we like. And so certain things will come at the right time, and it's just, a fad that goes. For instance, the Harlem Shuffle, or the Macarena. This was big back in the day, and I'm old enough to remember that. And people would say Macarena, and nobody knew what it means. But if you listen to the English versions, my boyfriend, it's basically about a threesome. That's literally what it is. If you listen to the lyrics of the song, it's about a threesome. But nobody's listening to the words of the song because they're paying attention to the dance, which is doing the Macarena. Aye. So, sorry. So when people are looking at the dance, it's just a fad. And then years later, when people actually are sitting back looking at this on TV, when they do the specials of the 90s or something, and they're dissecting the songs, they're like, oh, is that what it's about? So some things just come at the right moment when you need it the most. It's like a movie. You're watching a movie and you're like, I'll give you a perfect example. A show like All in the Family would not last today, because today you have to be politically correct. A show like All in the Family was ahead of its time, and people weren't used to it. And it talked about topics that nobody else would touch, that nobody else wanted to talk about. And today the show is considered a classic that people still watch. But if it aired today, it would likely have been canceled after 3 episodes. That's the same thing with Married with Children. Married with Children put the Fox Network on the map. But it was a very show that people did not like because it talked about very mature stuff, about sex, misogyny, and did it. But they actually did it in a very respectful way. So there's always that. And that's when it's too tough to turn off, because it's so cheesy that it's just there for entertainment. We know it's stupid. We know it's dumb. But it's there because you just can't look away. And then, but the world was also a different place back then. So you can't compare it to today. And if these shows are on today, it's like nostalgic and like, wow, I remember these days. And I'm really looking at a lot of the Saturday morning cartoons that are airing now on Me TV Tunes, or anywhere else, or on Pluto or Plex. Like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, or Smurfs, or Alvin and the Chipmunks, which somehow I started singing the theme song to it on Friday night, or Captain Planet. The nostalgia is there, and you just want to go back to those days because those were good days and you remembered them. And so that's what I mean by turning it off. That we just can't do that. And we're also and we're also hardwired because that's how our brain works. But anyway, let's think about the last few years. We all, with Donald Trump. Donald Trump is president, and the reason why his first term was a lot calmer than it is now is because he had people that were keeping him in check. And he realized that. He realized that, and he felt that it was restricting him from doing what he wanted to do. So now he said, if I become president again, I'm going to have loyalists. I'm going to have yes men, and won't try to stop me for everything I do. And as we see, it's in real life, it came to fruition. We actually see that. And we all told you, all of us, and I'm not really referring to any Democrats here or any Republicans. I'm not really going to get into the party of politics here. What I'm saying is that the people that were voting for Trump, we told you this is who he is. For all these years, we're warning you. If he says he's going to do it, believe it. And people told you this every single time. If he says he's going to do it, believe it. And we tried to warn you. And again, this is really what I'm going to say. We saw the patterns. Look, we know who Donald Trump was. It's a history here. And this is really what I want to say. And I'm going to keep it's supposed to be humorous, but I have to do this in order to link to what I want to say so you understand it better. Because without a backstory, no one knows the context and it makes no sense. So bear with me on this. So, Donald Trump has a history back in the 80s. Now, Donald Trump used to live in New York before he abandoned it for Florida. Hence the Trump Tower, because he has a house up in the tower on Fifth Avenue. And in New York, he's been very known. And over the years, it's been no secret that he's been a racist or a bigot. And the proof of that is something that happened called in 1989, and I know this for a fact because as an actor I worked on this, and I got to speak with one of the people involved, was the Central Park Five, who were black kids who got accused of raping a white woman while she was jogging the park. This is a well-known story. It's not a secret. You can even look it up. And right away, Donald Trump took out a full-page ad saying, give them the death penalty. Give them the death penalty. He already came to his conclusion that these boys were guilty without knowing any of the facts. And the proof is in the pudding because we saw that in Minneapolis when Kristi Noem was still a Homeland Security Secretary, where she was giving her version of events of what happened in Minneapolis, and she was creating her own version of facts and saying, this is what happened, and anybody else telling you otherwise are lies. And that's why facts are important. And Donald Trump to this day still believes that's the case, that these boys were found guilty, and he was showing. But one of them had the last laugh because now one of them is actually a city councilman in the Bronx. At least I think it's the Bronx. And I saw them on set when I was working on this. It was for Netflix, a very powerful film. And I had the opportunity to talk to him during some downtime. And he basically said to me, they sued Donald Trump for destroying them because he believes it was a conspiracy against him, against these boys, simply because they were black. And he basically ripped their childhood away from them because they spent half their life behind bars. And you know what? And that's true. And that's just one instance. Another instance is he was known not to pay his workers. But here's the funny part about this entire thing. All the workers that worked for him in real estate were Mexican. They were probably illegals too, might I add. Just like his wives. And he never paid any one of them. And when his father died, he didn't even go to the funeral. It did not even faze him. And I don't really care what you think about someone's. I don't care, and I don't care what anybody thinks about their mother or their father or their sister or their brother. They're still family. And look, even today, Donald Trump yesterday says he's not going to Don's wedding. He says he knew him all his life, but he's not going to the wedding because he has more important things to do. Think about that for a second. He has more important things to do. What's more important than going to your son's wedding? What's more important than going to your flesh and blood's wedding? And you're going to say, I know him very well. Well, no shit, Sherlock. Of course you know him well, because he's your fucking son. And if you don't know your own son, then you have other problems that you need to deal with. And the fact that he's saying, listen, if you can make the time to go golf 23% of the time of your presidency, then you certainly have time to go to your son's wedding. That's slap in the face. But again, this is a pattern. And we all told you, believe what he says. Because what he says, believe him. And this is a pattern. We saw the patterns, we saw all the deflections, and we saw all the big lie tactics. And what happened? Nobody wanted to hear it. They said, bug off. They said, we don't really give, no, you're just saying it because you hate Trump. You hate Trump. He's for Israel, he's blah, 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 or whatever he is. If he says he's going to get shit done, he's going to get shit done. And on a side note, almost every politician says anything to get your vote because they know what you want to hear and they play to that. Having said that, most of them actually do what they're going to say they do. But how many campaign promises did Donald Trump never keep? Okay, we have an Iran war. He said no new wars. He said he's going to end the Ukraine war. We're still at war with them. They're still at war. He said he was going to lower grocery prices, except grocery prices are high now. He said gas will go down. No, they're not. No, they're not. We have no new wars, but we're in a war with Iran. He put America first, but he told America to drop dead. And yes, I know there are some MAGA people saying it was taken out of context. No, it wasn't, because if it was taken out of context, then what exactly did it mean? And you can't even explain that, so go fuck yourselves. But anyway, we told you about this. And nobody wanted to hear it. They wanted the show. And now they've got that shit show that they wanted. And you know what? Most people are waking up saying they want their money back because they hate the show and they want it canceled. And good for them. But the damage is already done and it's too late and you can't take it back. But anyway, they wanted the tough guy image. And that's what you get in Donald Trump. A guy who's tough, who thinks he's running the White House like a mafia, like a mafia house. And you basically get what you give. And you basically got what you voted for. Because you didn't want to listen to us. They would rather choose the comfortable lie over the uncomfortable reality. And look at where we are now. Look at where we are. Look at where we are. Now, he's systematically trying to bankrupt the country by any means necessary, which is impossible to do. It's impossible to do. But this is also a guy who did the impossible, which is bankrupting 4 casinos. It's hard to bankrupt 1 casino, let alone 4 of them. And this is the guy that's running the government. And if he can bankrupt 4 casinos in less than 4 years, and now he's trying to bankrupt the country, which is also impossible to do. Step back and ask yourself, when is enough? He's now taking our tax dollar money and basically stealing it for a complete slush fund and give it to people he feels deserves money because they were treated harmly. People like the January 6th people. Think about that for a second. And Blanche is doing this because he's auditioning to be the Attorney General. If anything, he should be disbarred because he should know the law. And in fact, he's breaking the law by stealing money from American taxpayers who we pay taxes to things that are important, like programs that he cut, infrastructure, a budget that goes to every state. But this is what you wanted. This is what you wanted. It's the same psychological game. If you can keep people entertained, they won't notice that the house is burning down behind you. And also, it's what we also call deflection. Because narcissists and people with an ego like to deflect. And that's exactly what Donald Trump is doing, deflecting. When he can't get rid of one, he'll try something else so he can get people talking about it. For instance, the Epstein files, a campaign promise that he said he would take care of. He said in his campaign, and I quote, "I will release Epstein files because we are all about transparency. This administration is all about transparency." And that was not just him saying it. Caroline Leavitt kept saying it in her press briefings too. Well, that was a lie, because if there was transparency, we wouldn't be in the position we're in now. And then not only that, he said it a second time on Fox News that I will release the Epstein files. I don't see why not. And guess who's watching Fox News? His supporters, Republicans, MAGA, all of them. And if he's saying that and he's not releasing it, and he doesn't want to, and then he releases it, but doesn't want to talk about it anymore because it's incriminating him. It's a pattern here. It's a pattern. And the house is burning down. By that I mean, when we have midterm elections, guess what's going to happen? The fire is going to be put out because the Democrats will retake control of the House and the Senate, and guess what's going to happen? The fire will start again, but in a good way. And and a lot of the Senate Democrats and House leaders have come on various news programs and already have set the plans in motion to tell you what they're going to do to hold all of these people accountable in November. And that's why I'm doing this podcast today, because it's all related. And I said I wasn't going to get political, but I had to give you that backstory to understand the context of why I'm doing this, because it's not just a political thing. And this is true. Donald Trump is a master grifter, and he's doing it in the White House, right? And he's not even trying to hide it anymore. He's openly scamming people and grifting. The slush fund is the ultimate con, and telling people and trying to justify why people know about it. But here's the strange part about the scam. Here's the strange part about this, and I'll tell you why legally this makes no sense. Donald Trump is saying he has nothing to do with the slush fund, and he knows nothing about it, and if you have questions, give it to Todd Blanche. There's only one problem with this. It's a big lie, scam, because Donald Trump was the plaintiff in this case. Donald Trump was the plaintiff in this case. And as a plaintiff, you have to be aware of this case, because when you want to settle out of court, both sides have to agree to some sort of a settlement, because they have to sign their name to the settlement. So the fact that Donald Trump is saying, I know nothing about it, is another con artist scam, because just to cover his ass. So when the shit goes south, Donald Trump would say, I do nothing about it. I didn't know about it. But the second problem with this scenario is that unfortunately, he's the President of the United States, and the Justice Department isn't going to do anything without telling the President first. Okay? They're not going to just because if they're doing something, they're not going to keep the person in the dark because you're the president. You have to know everything. And so, and if people are too stupid to realize this, then that's on them. Look, and by the way, the evidence speaks for itself, and I'll tell you why. Trump University doesn't exist. All those potential students ended up suing Donald Trump, and guess what happened? He lost the case. Okay, we had Trump water, which for some odd reason, the Trump steaks, Trump restaurants, the White House with the ballroom. He's saying it's privately being funded by donors. Okay, great. But then he comes out about face a month later, says, I need $2 billion for the ballroom. And Congress is going, taxpayers are going to pay for it. Well, didn't you publicly say private donors are paying for the ballroom? So if private donors are paying for the ballroom, then why are you coming to Congress now and saying, I need $2 billion? And why is Congress coming out and saying, great, let the taxpayers pay for it? Something isn't kosher here. Something isn't kosher. Because, and not only did you say it's going to be privately funded, by the way, the people who are funding it publicly came out and said, yes, I gave money towards the ballroom. So if that's the case, why are taxpayers paying for it? First of all, let's not forget, the ballroom is illegal. You have to get Congress approval. So by telling the taxpayers they're going to pay for it, you're essentially telling the taxpayers it's okay to commit a crime because I'm the president and you're doing it for the good of your country. Which, keep in mind, makes no sense, but it is a scam. It is a scam. And I'm not here to be a nice guy who keeps his mouth shut so the room stays comfortable. Because that's what they want you to do. And that's what Donald Trump is trying to do. He's trying to shut people up when you speak out against him. And by the way, that's not a president. That is an authoritarian leader who's basically saying who has to get all the loose ends done. And that's why the mafia goes after you if you betray them. Because they have to have all the loose ends so the paper trail doesn't lead back to them. And they're willing to throw anybody else under the bus in order to protect whatever secrets they have. And that's what Donald Trump is doing. He doesn't want you to say anything. And if you do, which is, he doesn't like it, which is why when he's asked valid questions, he goes off and says, he either goes on a tangent talking about a question that was never asked, or he tells a woman, quiet, piggy, quiet, which, by the way, is misogynistic and also insulting because then you're telling the woman she's fat. And if you're telling somebody, oh, you're a bad reporter, I hate your network, I'm not going to answer your question next. Well, that's being a bully. But you're being asked a question you don't want to answer because A, you don't know the answer. Either A, you don't know the answer, or B, you know the answer, but you don't want to incriminate yourself. And so they deflect. And it's okay. You can hate me for this, and I don't really care. Because I'm here to be the guy who points at the fire and says, look, and I'm going to point out the hypocrisy. Because it's not just politics. It's everyday life. Because I'm tired of watching people trade their reality for a fantasy that is sold to them by guys who don't have a shred of substance to back it up. And that's the thing you have to understand. When I look on Facebook and I see people typing things away and saying blah, 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 I'm like, where's your source for this? How do you know this is, how can we build trust you? If there's no, where's your credibility here? If there's no source, and the best response you have is to attack me like a child and say, and curse me out and call me and saying, oh, you're a liberal. Oh, you go back to loving Mamdani. Really? Because I remember back in the day, before Trump was even relevant, everybody was nice to each other and people respected each other's opinions. We were able to agree to disagree and all that and not agree to anything. And there's always that one guy that has to open his goddamn mouth. And that's the one guy that everybody hates because he's actually telling like it is. And nobody wants that. And that guy is me. And again, the name of my Substack is Thoughts from an Outspoken Guy on purpose, because I will say, what that means basically is I'm the guy that will say what's on my mind. And it could be anything at any point of what I'm thinking that day. You don't have to like it. You don't have to agree to it, but the truth does hurt. But I'm not going to, but there's a way to say what everyone's thinking but won't say, as opposed to I'm saying it because somebody has to. There's two different things there. Because saying it of what everyone's thinking doesn't always work doesn't always work for you. I'm saying it because I'm pointing it out and showing people that look, you can tell me to shut up, you can tell me to mind my own business, but someone has to say it. Otherwise, because it'll affect other people. Maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow. And yes, people who know me know that I back things up, because if you can't back it up, you have absolutely no credibility. And if you have no credibility, why would anybody want to trust you? Why would anybody want to believe you? And why would anybody want to take your word for it? So yeah, we're going to laugh at the guy in my group chat who's wearing a tuxedo to a singles event to talk to the women over there. We're going to mock the casino correspondent who has never actually been to the casino, but we're also going to talk about why we let these people lead us, why we're so desperate for a leader who will follow anyone with a loud voice and a fake story. It's a theater of grifters, con artists, scammers, manipulators, anything you can think, anything you can think of, from the group chat to the national stage. And today I'm finally going to pull the curtain back. Number one, if you claim you have a girlfriend, then why the hell are you going to a singles event? You are not single. And if you have a girlfriend and you're crashing weddings to pick up what he calls hot women or hot gals. But if you have a girlfriend, why are you picking up hot gals? If you have a girlfriend, why are you asking other people in the chat, are there any hot gals there? Are there any girls? Are there any girls there? And also, what makes a hot girl? What makes a girl hot? And why do you have to say hot girl? That means you're letting people know that you're looking at women as a sexual object. Because you keep saying hot girls. Why don't you just say, are there any girls there? But if you supposedly have a girlfriend, you shouldn't even be asking this question. And here's another one. And here's another for you. Here's another for you. If he says, my girlfriend was thinking I was flirting with other girls and she didn't mind, then you're a lowlife. Because I asked 2 girls over the weekend what they thought of this. And they said, it's disrespectful and you don't do that. And these girls are 100% right. But here's the funny humor in this. If a girl is doing it, if a girl is flirting with a guy, she's doing it to use her sex appeal and her charm to get what she wants, even if it benefits you. But if you do it, they may or may not consider it cheating. Yes, it's double standard, but don't try to figure it out, because you're never going to. And for all those women out here listening, I apologize for this, but you know 100% I'm right on this. So don't even try this. And if you have a girlfriend, how come we don't see a picture of her? How come you're always home? If you have a girlfriend, shouldn't you be with her instead of sitting in a chat all day talking? And if you have a girlfriend, you wouldn't need to crash your wedding. Now you're crashing the wedding for two reasons. You're mooching off the food and to get the women. But, and now tonight, where I said I was going to a singles event, and he wants to go, and his justification for this saying is, and I quote, let me get the exact quote for you. Let me get the exact quote for you. Now, I want to point out that while I'm looking for this, you had to be vetted for this event. Basically, you had to be screened. And in the Jewish world, they wanted to give a matchmaker resume and your pictures and everything, and they vet you. And originally, they had an address. They publicized the address, and because of the weather outside, all the rain and everything, they moved it to a venue, and they changed it on the front to say, address to be given to those accepted into the event. Great. My friend told me she's not running the event, but she gave a list of people who she says should be better not come. And I'll explain, I'll get back to that in a minute. So anyway, I was asking in the chat, anybody going to the event tonight? And I said, you need to be screened and vetted, which technically is the same thing. And someone said, oh, so-and-so's event. I'm not going to give you her name. And he wrote, she is a participant and it's open to the whole Jewish community. And my other friend wrote, so you got screened and found nothing? I'm like, someone wrote, is it still going on if it's raining? Valid. A valid point. And he wrote, location changed to a Syrian shul. So someone says, is this her event? And I'm like, no, it's not. He's saying it's the same event I went to last week, and that's Jimmy talking. And I wrote, I got the address emailed me. So Jimmy writes, my community shul, son, aka synagogue, keep it clean. Somebody else in the chat, let's call him Ray, said you gotta sign up. My other friend said, sounds like you used a fake name. Okay. When I said you gotta sign up, Jimmy responded, I know the rabbi's son. I know the rabbi, son. To the upper, so Ray says, that means it's not open. I responded, you can go, but please leave me out of it. AKA, I'm going, but I don't want to be involved in this drama. I don't want to link back to me. Somebody says, so what? So what the fuck? So Jimmy says, 30 to 50 though. Ray says, so do I. Jimmy says, he's going. So I wrote, only because they changed venue to the weather. You're not on the list, so good luck. And I wrote, there's a reason the address, I said, Jimmy, there's a reason the address isn't public. I had to privately email information to get approved to go. What makes you special? So Ray writes to me, dude, he's Syrian and knows Rabbi, leaving him blank. He can just show up and they'll be happy. They might even pay him to come. And I wrote, he didn't RSVP your email. Again, I'm leaving the name out. The other guy goes, you're not Syrian. Syrians get special treatment. He can just show up. So the girl who gave the list in to say who should not be allowed to come, she wrote, and again, I'm not saying names on purpose to protect everybody. So, only because I know every single one of them. So, she writes, at the end of the day, if he shows up, it's at the discretion of the person at the door to let him in or not. I don't know how it's going to be. I made some audio, to which I responded, he's Syrian, listening to email the list, they get VIP. And then at the end of the day, Jimmy writes, at the end of the day, people are going there to find a spouse. That's the purpose is. And I wrote, not necessarily. And then he says, that isn't why. Besides, I pray in that shul. And then he tells me, Mark, just go and see. Not rocket science. I said, okay, good luck, but if you're not on the list, good luck. And I wrote, I was invited. And then he's trying to justify it by saying, looks like you guys never been. I said, I have an email that says that. And I was invited to write, so go. Ray says, why are you arguing? Just go. Why be so defensive, says another girl. And Jimmy writes exactly 100%. So go. You're making it a big deal, saying you don't need to sign up to go. And yet it turned into a one big argument that shouldn't have been. So, and that's where they say, and they act. And Jimmy says, because people pretending they run the place when they never been to any of the events ran in my community. Let people find a spouse. It's open to all. No one should act. It's a secret meetup. All right, enjoy who come and meet someone. And then Ray calls him out and says, aren't you dating someone though? Calling him out. And I'm writing, notice how he, and I just wrote to him, I just wrote to Ray, notice how he didn't answer you and went completely silent. And another girl was answering, says, it's not your place to say she can help and work there. Not your place to say. So they were talking about some Syrian thing that I don't know. And the answer, dating someone, another girl said fake news. Um, and he's saying he has a wedding tonight. So Ray says, so you're not even going to the event tonight? What the hell are you arguing about? And Jimmy goes, I am, but after the, but then I'm going to the wedding. And claiming that he's not crashing because the groom's his friend, and telling people, so you're leaving your friends ready to go to the event, you know. And then he switches topic to talk about good custom suits and if I don't want to see different ideas. So you're showing up to a friend's wedding late to go to an event. And again, I know I'm reading all this, and I know it's a lot of technical babble, but bear with me, please. I'm getting to a point here. So one of the girls says, what is he looking for? Ray gives the, I don't know, emoji. And anyway, so Jimmy answers me, why isn't he just public? So we are aware who is coming to the venues and their attentions. And I write, who's we? And no, that's not why, because they only know who's coming after they give you the address after passing the vetting. And and this is the entire time he's busy posting pictures of custom suits to get people's opinion. He's basically trying to throw me off and deflect. And I wrote, and Jimmy, unless you have access to a private list, you don't know who's coming. And he just kept posting pictures of suits with comments about them, and that's it. And I wrote, have to suit up to a lot of weddings coming up, new summer designs. I know it's business casual, you don't have to be fancied up. And because at the end of the day, the people are going there to find a spouse. And I wrote, but you have a girlfriend. Someone did a laughing emoji. And I wrote, notice how he didn't respond when quiet. And someone says, you're bored, go do something. And you notice how they are throwing shade to this. And you notice how they're throwing shade to this. So, and that's the point of this podcast that I was making. And we're taking this guy Gabe. He's running and I just showed you this Jimmy guy. Sorry, I accidentally said his name. Whoopsie. He's running the exact same playbook as every low rent grifter I've ever seen on the news. It starts with the status signal. He shows up to a standard singles event wearing a three-piece suit like he's about to testify before Congress. Why? Because he knows that if he looks like he belongs in a higher tax bracket, you're less likely to question his bank account. It's a visual misdirection. He's banking on the fact that you're too polite to ask, hey, why are you dressed like you're attending a royal wedding? And then when you don't worship at the altar of his wardrobe, he pivots to the insider knowledge play by dropping intel, sort of like the casino stories, the rabbi connections, the I know who's really running things attitude, like the tough guy thing. It's meant to make you feel like you're on the outside looking in, and he's trying to make you feel small so he can feel big. And this is the same thing that Donald Trump does, and this is what anybody with money does, or anybody that wants to feel like a tough guy with status would do. Like, it's sort of like the Billy Joel song Big Shot. You had to be a big shot, did you? All your friends were so knocked out, you had to have the last word last night. All your friends were so... He's basically saying, look at that. I'm a big shot. I'm a big person. Because it's all about ego. And they want to feel respected. But here's the thing. If you're not authentic, people will see right through the bullshit. And it goes with the same thing as a job. And I did this the other day at an interview where I find the humor that people who aren't people aren't people persons. They're not people, so they prefer to work in the back of the house, like a stockroom or something. But they take the job of a people person because for the money. And I'm finding it, and I find it humorous that people do this because people will see through the BS. People will see right through you, and it's not going to, and it's not only going to backfire on you because you're representing the company, so it's going to backfire on them too. Because at the end of the day, the customer is always right, and if you're not authentic and you're not yourself. And this goes back to what I said in my podcast a couple of weeks ago when I wrote identity. Who we are, what is it? And identity makes who we are. And we're trying to pretend to be somebody we're not. It's never going to end well. Because at some point, people are going to realize the jig is up. And it's the same thing with here. And the Trump phones, back early on last year, when Donald Trump Jr. announced the Trump phones, and they said, put $100 deposit down. A year later, no one has gotten the phones. And now they're starting to get the phones, and they're not even working properly, and they're like, you're not going to get your money back. But here's the thing. What's so different about this phone that's different from a Galaxy 25, or an iPhone, or a Moto G? What's the difference? That it's just gold with the picture of an American flag, and it says Trump on it? La-di-da. La-di-da. It's a scam. And you're all being scammed. Anybody that bought this phone, you're basically giving money to a grifter. He's basically using you, his supporter, to pay for his legal fees. Or whatever fees are involved. He's having taxpayers pay for his slushy fund. Which is illegal, unethical, immoral, and theft. All walked into one. It's another grifting scheme that he knows he can get away with because the kicker that they put into that is that at no point in time will the Trump family or the business be allowed to be audited for this. And that's got to tell you everything right then and there. It's the same dynamic that made people fall for the political theater of the last decade. It's this weird, addictive mix of, I'm an outsider taking on the system, and I'm actually the most successful person in the room. Really? So what about all the other people in suits? Men and women. What about all of them in suits? Are you saying you're more successful than they are? That you're better than them because you have a suit that cost you $950 and they're wearing suits that may have cost $500? You don't know that because you got your suit custom made, so that makes you feel all powerful? I don't wear suits when I go to weddings. I don't need to. I know the wedding is a great place to pick up women, but I'm secure. If a woman wants to talk to me at a wedding, I'm wearing business casual. If a woman wants, and nobody today is wearing suits to weddings. Today it's more of more of a sporty casual look. Also, depending on the season and where the wedding is, but it's a whole different ballgame altogether. The point is, I wear business casual. I'm going to an event tonight in my neighborhood. I'm not putting on a suit and tie. I don't need to. It's a freaking event. It's a freaking singles event, and I'm looking at it from this positive perspective. To me, I don't have to meet anybody. I'm happily single, and I'm not looking for love, but if love finds me, great. But I'm looking from this like this. For me, I have nothing to lose because it's a free event. And it's a nice night out for me. I'm getting a nice dairy buffet meal. Maybe I'll see some of my friends. I'm going to see some of my friends there. Maybe meet new people. Maybe I'll get a speech, one or two speeches there. But at the end of the day, and it's local. It's about a 20-minute walk from me. And so, if nothing comes from it, I have nothing to lose. It's just a good night out. That's it. And people go in with expecting things. And when they go in expecting things and what they expect to happen doesn't happen, they'll say they had a shitty time at the event and was lousy and they didn't get any numbers with the girls. But going with open mind and positive. And that's what I'm doing, and I'm going to be myself, and I'm going to be authentic. And that's what people like. I don't have to dress up all fancy to prove my validation and to prove my worth. I don't have to dress up. I can put on a nice pair of pants, a nice button-down shirt, fix myself a little bit, and let the chips fall where they may. And that's it. I don't pretend to be somebody I'm not, because at the end of the day, when the truth comes out, who you end up losing in that. But it is the same dynamic. But you see the guy in the news promise he's going to shake everything up, and then you see the guy in your text thread promise he's going to close the deal at the next wedding. They're both selling you a version of themselves that doesn't exist. The problem isn't that they're lying. People have been lying since the dawn of time, and everybody lies for many different reasons. Okay? The problem is that we've stopped demanding receipts from people. We become a society of receiptless consumers. We see the suit, we hear the brag, and we just accept it because it's easier than doing the work to find out if it's real. And the truth of the matter is, we are wired to think, why do we think he's lying? He's saying all the right things, so why would we think he's lying? Until you find out, holy shit, the guy's a con artist. He's promised you something I'm not getting. And I'll get to that in my next thing. But here's the thing. I'm done with the easy route. I'm done being the guy who nods and says, oh, wow, that's crazy, man. While my brain is screaming that the math doesn't add up. When you start calling it out, when you stop being the nice guy who keeps the peace, the reaction is always the same. They don't get mad because you're wrong. They get mad because you're ruining the fun. You're the guy who walked into the theater and told everyone the movie is fake. Nobody likes that guy. And by the way, hi, that's me. I'm the one schmuck that's doing that. But with good intentions. But I've realized something. But all kidding aside, I've realized something. The person who likes the truth is usually the only one who doesn't get burned when the theater eventually shuts down. So if you're listening to this and you're nodding your head, if you've got a Jimmy or a Jane in your life, or if you've spent the last few years wondering how we all collectively decided to ignore reality in favor of a really loud, really bad performance, then welcome to the club. We're going to dissect this. We're going to look at the patterns, and yeah, we're going to make fun of the ridiculous stuff, because if we didn't laugh, we'd have to cry. But we're also going to get to the root of why this is happening, why we're so vulnerable to it, why it's tearing our communities apart, and why, at the end of the day, the nice guys who actually care about the truth are the only ones you should be listening to. And I got a clear head. I know exactly what I'm saying here, and you all could relate to this because you all know what I've been saying. I've got a clear head, and I'm ready to stop pretending. Are you? And look, people follow grifters because they want to belong. And not all the time do they know they're a grifter until it's too late and the damage is done. But if you really want to build a real community, show them you aren't better than them, just more aware. Look, I'm not saying I'm immune to this. I'm in the same boat like everybody else here. I've been made promises that turned out to be used against me so that I give them what they want. And I've been fooled before, so I understand all this. And we all have that moment where we want to believe the lie because it's more exciting than the truth. And FDR said the only thing we have to fear is fear itself because people fear what they don't understand. And that's why it's important to educate yourself on it so that we can understand it. The difference is I'm not going to pretend it's not happening anymore. This podcast isn't about me being smarter than you. It's about us getting smart together so we stop getting played and we can learn how to beat them at their own game. And look, I'm sitting here. I'm eating I'm eating a cookie. I'm getting ready to go to the event later on a Sunday afternoon, and I'm feeling better. I'm not worried about what Jimmy is posting, and I'm not worried about the next lie coming on the pipeline, because once you name it, it loses its power. And that's the lesson I can leave you with. Don't let the noise in any group chat or any friend circles or the noise on your TV dictate your mood. You're the director of your own show. So stop playing a character in theirs. And so that's where I'm leaving it today. Because we can spend our lives getting annoyed by the Jimmys and the Janes in our group chats, in our friendships, in our daily routines. Or we can learn to see the pattern for what it is. The suit, the stories, the name dropping. It's all just noise designed to keep you from asking the one question that actually matters. Is this real? And I'm done being the guy who gets burnt because I was the only one paying attention. And I'm done being the nice guy who keeps his mouth shut so the room stays comfortable. From here on out, I'm the audience. I'm the critic. And I'm the one calling out the play. So if you've got a Jimmy in your life, or a Jane, or if you're just tired of the theater on the national stage, do yourself a favor. Stop buying the ticket. Stop engaging with the performance. The moment you stop reacting to the grift and the cons and the scams and everything in between, you take away their power. And when their power is taken away, they just become a nobody. Now, I've still got an hour left to kill. I'm going to make most of it. And for the first time today, I'm actually feeling pretty good. I'm choosing my own reality, not the one being sold to me by a guy who's scared of who he is when he takes the suit off. Thanks for listening to The Truth today. Keep your eyes open, watch for the warning signs, and don't let anyone cast you as a character in their fake movie. I'm Mark. This is just the beginning, and I'll see you next time.